The Donkey Law. In the United States, specifically in Arizona, it is illegal to let a donkey sleep in a bathtub. Now, this might seem weird, but there's actually some backstory behind this exact law. So, in 1924, there was a farmer who decided to let his donkey sleep outside in a bathtub. I guess he just had a bathtub on his land, and, why not? That night, there was a dam that broke, and there was a mass flooding that happened. There was water all through the streets, and the donkey floated away on the bathtub like a boat. That made the town spend many hours and many resources looking for this donkey. It caused a great disturbance. The local government immediately decided to make it illegal. So this law is not enforced all that much, but it is technically illegal to let a donkey sleep in a bathtub in Arizona. Fried chicken must be eaten with only your hands. So in 1961, there was a town called Gainesville, Georgia, and they decided they wanted to do a little bit of a publicity stunt in order to get more publicity towards their town, more tourism, etc. The town decided that fried chicken was a delicacy there. As they did that, they also made it illegal to eat it with any utensils other than your hands. No forks, no knives, no spoons, none of that. It is quoted stating, "It is a crime against the poultry capital of the world to eat fried chicken with a fork." This law is technically still legally enforceable, however, it's more of a meme in the town now, but there was one instance in 2016, a 91-year-old woman was jokingly arrested for eating fried chicken with a fork before immediately being released and named the honorary chicken ambassador. No ice cream cones in the back pocket. So in Georgia and Alabama, it is actually illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket, and this might seem a bit weird and a bit out of the ordinary, but there actually is a backstory behind this. So during the mid and late 1800s, horse thievery was actually a very big problem. The horse thieves typically put an ice cream cone in their back pocket to try to lure horses away from their owners so they could steal them and claim them as their own. It was kind of a way for thieves to, quote-unquote, accidentally bring the horses away from their owners, since intentionally leading a horse away was theft and that was a crime punishable by hanging. Someone caught on and it was banned in these two states. It is technically still a law that can be enforced, however, it is completely obsolete at this point and is more just there for a sign of the history and for a good laugh. You cannot push a live moose out of a moving airplane. So in Alaska, it is prohibited to drop a moose from a moving aircraft. Although this seems like common sense, it's actually an enforceable law. So there are parts in Alaska that are super remote, and it is reported that officials were dropping moose from aircraft to retain moose population in certain regions. Sometimes sedating them, putting them with a parachute, and pushing them out of the plane. And other times they just push them into a big pile of fluffy snow. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. No cold beer. So in the state of Indiana, if you buy a beer from any convenience store, grocery store, anywhere that is not a licensed liquor store, it must be sold warm. The only place that's actually allowed to sell beer cold are licensed liquor stores. This law was put in place as it was hoped to prevent drunk driving, impulsive drinking, and public intoxication. This is actually the first law in this video that is actually still strictly enforced to this day, and you can actually have results such as fines, a liquor license violation, and that can even lead to losing your liquor license altogether. So I do have two honorable mentions at the end of this video. I think these are more honorable mentions than actual laws because the first one is more of a myth, but it's still a funny story. And the second one is a law, but it's not enforced anymore, but it's definitely interesting. The Pickle Law. What? So in Connecticut, a pickle is actually not able to be considered a pickle if it does not bounce. So in 1948, there were two food salesmen that were caught selling pickles that were deemed to be unsafe for human consumption. The Food and Drug Commissioner of the state said, "A real pickle will actually bounce if it's dropped from a foot above the ground." This law, like I said, isn't enforced anymore because obviously there is way more better ways to classify food as safe to eat or not. That's still just a crazy story, and it's actually been proven to be not true. It's more of a myth, but I still had to share it because I love that story. The Denture Law. So in Vermont, during the mid to late 1800s, women must actually get written permission from the husband in order to wear dentures. This might seem odd at first, considering that dentures are just something you put in your mouth and it's not really that big of a deal. However, back then, dentures and other dental care was actually seen as an extreme luxury. And since men back then owned all the family assets and all the property, a woman having such an expensive item, it was really common to see that as theft. So therefore, they needed to get written permission from their husband. This one obviously didn't age well, but that's the 1800s for you. And obviously that's why it is no longer enforced. But as far as I know, with the research I did, this law was never taken out of the rule books, I guess, whatever you want to say. So technically it is still a law, but no one's going around asking to see your papers for your teeth.